Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. Hopefully to be joined here by my co-host very soon, maybe possibly a guest coming down the pipeline here. But the title of today's episode is The Golden Bridge, and speaking and previewing on the Eagles game tomorrow at 5 o'clock, which is it's kind of a weird game to break down. A lot of news has developed over the past couple weeks, and where Washington is sitting at currently is a far too familiar feeling with Washington fans in the sense of December football not being meaningful, and it sucks to be in this position, but it's a hard game to break down because there's still a game to play. There's still guys on the field that are really wanting to win. So we're going to break down the game, what we expect to see from it. We're going to see some new faces tomorrow against the Eagles, quite possibly, and some familiar ones. But to break that down, we're going to answer some fan questions then to wrap up the show. But the first thing I wanted to discuss is earlier this week and last week of Dan Quinn saying that Jaden Daniels is going to be out for the season. And this is something that I was very much against. I understand why they pulled the plug on it. You could give a hat tip to Dan Quinn for doing it at that time, based that Washington was mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. Hat tip, that was very knowledgeable and wise thing to do from Dan Quinn's perspective. But overall, I do think Jaden deserves to be out on that field. And I understand the question from the Colonel later on that I'm going to get into kind of speaks on the learning of lessons, and I wholeheartedly understand that, and I get that. But I'm not going to sit here and coddle Jaden because this is a man's game. You got to be out there and be able to learn. It's a literally week by week forcing of something. Like it's very hard to kind of explain it in layman's terms or a certain way that we could kind of understand it. But in my line of work of construction, of doing electrical, if I'm not doing electrical every single day, in a year from now, yeah, I'll know the ins and outs of it, but I'm not as quick with it. I'm not as immediate with an answer at some points. And so it's the same, you have to imagine it's the same sort of way with quarterbacking. I mean, if you even look at of Kirk Cousins' breakdown at the press conference talking about how defenses have evolved since he came into the league. And just that, when you hear him breaking it down, the fact of not really worrying about the safeties are doing, going in with that plan, then adjusting it to now breaking it off progression 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That mental game he's talking about is literally a couple seconds before the snap and maybe a second or two post-snap. Everything else goes into the quarterback, and that's not even talking about having to be able to put the ball on the right spot in a very accurate point to where only your guy could get it, going against some of the best athletes in the world currently at the moment. And so playing quarterback in the NFL is difficult. It's not like any other position. And I understand, we for the first time, Washington, I was talking about this with the coworkers today. For the first time in our history, as much as anyone wants to argue with me, look, Sonny, you can make an argument for. Sammy Ball, okay, you can make that argument. But since those guys, Washington really has not had a franchise quarterback. Joe Gibbs is the only head coach in NFL history that have won 3 separate Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks. No other head coach in history has been able to do that. Best head coach ever, in my personal opinion. I am slightly biased. But all I'm saying is this is obviously a very important time for Washington, in the sense that this is probably the only time that we've had a franchise guy in my existence, really, me being 35. I understand the gravity of the situation. I understand not wanting to piss away another year next year because Jaden gets nicked up in these next 3 games. I wholeheartedly understand that. But the other concern that comes into it is derailing next year, especially the early start of it, because of the reps right now. And you could say that's asinine, that's crazy. I understand wholeheartedly what you're saying. But anybody you talk to, doesn't matter what sphere of work, it could be military, it could be civilian work, it could be in sports. You cannot put a price tag on what you learn on any given play. Something could happen where something clicks, right? For example, in Jaden's first year, he goes against the Bucks, doesn't look like the after self, past self, what happens after that game. That Cincinnati game's that New York Giants last drive. I was at that game. It's only been field goals. They need to drive down the field to kick a field goal to win. That was the click I saw with Jaden. So, oh wow, now he's operating like an NFL quarterback. He's letting his wide receivers do the work. He's finding the right spots. He's hitting them, and we're getting down the field. After that, it blossomed. It ballooned. What happened in that New York game was a simple comfort. It was a simple light switch. And that can happen in any given time. I'm not saying that Jaden doesn't have that light switch currently, but my point being is you have no idea what kind of lessons could be learned unless you're in that situation. You cannot learn that lesson unless you're truly in that situation. And that is my concern, is that there are lessons to be learned that are bypassed, that are looked over, to pushed over into next season that could be learned now. And that could be asinine to a lot of people, and I'm not going to argue against you. I think you might be right. But in my heart, I know that it would make the team better. Would it make the team better if he was out all of next season? Absolutely not, of course. I get that. But the injury concern is always going to be an issue in every single NFL game you play, and that's why you play in the NFL. It's 100% injury risk for every single person that steps onto the field. You can't coddle it. And I feel for Jaden because I'm sure he doesn't like being on the sideline. He understands that. And I would be more worried overall about Jaden. Like I understand it because I know who Jaden is. I know that he works really hard. You don't just put a VR software in somebody's lap and say, all right, work on it. And then like the Jamarcus Russell practice film, something like that. That's not what Jaden did. It ended up turning into a 40 touchdown, 40 interception year. And he won the Heisman, got drafted second overall. This is a kid that works hard. This isn't somebody who just sits on their hands and is counting the time away. He's obviously somebody that takes a lot of time and effort into his craft. And if I were to advise Jaden on anything, is these last 3 weeks is work even harder than you did before, especially with the VR, especially with the mental reps, asking questions, doing game plan, just as if you were starting. You got to even go harder now, and especially in this offseason, because you don't have these last 3 games. You have to do more. And I could guarantee you there are loads of people wanting you to fail. And they are loving every second, every minute that you are not out on that field. And so you got to be able to be pissed off this offseason, take it in next year, and take it out on the league. Because this year was abhorrent. It was ridiculous. It was depressing. But overall, we're still in a good spot. We have something that we haven't had in a very long time. I give credit to the organization for being careful with the investment. And, of course, I understand it. But I ultimately don't agree with it. But I'm not here to complain. I'm not here to talk crap. But in terms of health overall, Jaden obviously is not playing these last 3 games. But we are going to see Drake Jackson, former first-round pick. Adam Peters knows very well from the San Francisco 49ers. These last 3 games are crucial for somebody like Drake Jackson. Where Washington is really, where we are really needing help at. Like, this is a low-risk, high-reward type of situation, not only for Washington, but also for Drake Jackson, because they're needing guys there. And this is somebody who has that first-round talent. I was talking to my coworker today about Emmanuel Forbes, because he's a Seattle Seahawks fan, and he was saying Emmanuel Forbes was doing a great job on JSN last night. And he was like, dude, he's a long dude. It's like, yeah, of course, yeah. We knew that. It's a sore subject still. Happy for the cat. But that's the sort of thing you could get out of Drake Jackson. And these last 3 games are going to be crucial for him. It being able to not only show what he can do, but for Washington, is that a piece that you can hang your hat on going into next season? Because if Drake Jackson shows up in this game, is actually very good, because the Eagles obviously are without Jalen Carter. They're without Lane Johnson on the right side, and Lane Johnson is monumental to that offensive line. I think any Philadelphia fan would agree with me with how they've looked up front all season. But this is a point where you can make good for you and you can make good for the organization, to where maybe we don't need to go so crazy at that position at for multiple ways in being able to attribute. Like, you don't have to go through free agency, top dollar, and a high-end draft pick to be able to bring somebody in here for DN. If Drake Jackson shows up enough for you, you might be able to say there's something here. Similar to Treylon Burks and the one-handed grab, where a lot of the people in the organization were like, that's something I'm willing to bet on, and the talent level to bring him back next year and to see if we can actually help him grow and be who he was supposed to be in drafting. And so this is a very good situation for not only organization, but for the player involved. I'm really hoping to see a lot out of Drake Jackson. And as much as I want to say him getting after the quarterback is going to be MO, number one, the 100% most necessary, important thing for him to do on Saturday tomorrow, it's going to be solidifying that outside, especially in the run game. Saquon Barkley, we know all too well what happened last season in the NFC Championship game, and you don't want that have that turn its ugly head again. You don't want to see that face again. And hopefully Drake Jackson could come in and help stabilize things on the outside to make Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu's job just a little bit easier. So I'm really expecting a lot out of Drake Jackson. I'm not going to say expecting. I'm hoping for a lot out of Drake Jackson. I think that's somebody that could really blossom. The other thing I wanted to discuss was the running back workload. And I think this is a very intriguing question because you've heard Dan Quinn, you've heard Cliff Kingsbury talk about going with the hot hand, right, at running back. Well, Chris Rodriguez was that hot hand until last week where he was out with a sickness. Now coming in is Bill Krosky-Merritt, who really did a fantastic job last week against the Giants. So who would you say has the hot hand at this moment? And I think this is the game where you kind of get that fire and ice element, where two are really meeting to make one, where I think we put too much. I saw people complaining during the Giants game last week that what is this coaching staff doing? We have to see more young guys, and we're not seeing Bill start this game. Well, Bill had a heavy workload in that game. Just because he's not out there for this first snap does not mean that he's getting a lot of opportunities to show himself. I find it ridiculous, the whole starting aspect of the running back. It's obvious by now that they do a running back by committee. And so in this game, I really would like to see Chris Rodriguez on those early downs mixed with Bill, similar to what you kind of see with Zach Charbonnet and K9 in Seattle, where like you have that, you rip off that long run by K9. Well, here comes Zach Charbonnet just to make it a little bit harder on you with fresh legs. That sort of thing with Chris Rodriguez and Bill. I still would expect a heavy workload from both because they've both been on a streak as of late. And I'm sure that Chris Rodriguez, with a week of rest with his legs, that he's ready to go. And I'm sure Bill is biting at the bit to build off what he did last week. Unfortunately, Marcus Mariota leads his team in fumbles right now, which is atrocious from the quarterback position. Your number one job is to protect the football. But Bill is right behind him. And obviously his was not ultimately a turnover, but it is becoming a thing. And so with Bill, it's a big game for Bill tomorrow. Going against that Eagles defense, you cannot allow them to have easy points. You have to make sure you're covering that football at all times. And I understand. And I understand in football and just overall, things happen fast. You're trying to make a lane, you're trying to make a cut, go somewhere, and it gets knocked out. Guys get paid too, right? But you got to make sure first and foremost you're securing that football, man. And Marcus is an old man in this league, and he still hasn't learned that. And it's not something that ultimately is very easy to do, especially when the bullets are flying. But Bill has to do a little bit better of a job to be able to do that. If we're going to go into next season hanging our hat on to say Bill is that guy, he is the workload, he is the stallion, so to speak, for this run offense, you got to be able to show confidence and that you'll be able to handle that workload. Now, as of this moment, I know that he's our leading rusher at the moment, but you got to show us a little bit more in confident building of being able to handle that many touches and not turning over the football. It has been a concern as of late. So for tomorrow, I don't know what you guys think. If you want to comment, let me know what you think the running back tallies should be. But I will ultimately say is this is the same game plan I would probably say I have for every single time we go against Philly. You go into that game, the same mindset that we had against the Eagles when Taylor Heineke was the quarterback, is you have the run first mentality, the play action off of it, and you grind the clock out, and you make sure that offense can't put up big points and let Saquon Barkley get into his rhythm and make it easy on him. And first and foremost, you got to be able to tackle the cat. You know what I mean? Like last season was putrid. So that has to be a thing. And that's why I say that the rotation, the dueling heads of Chris Rodriguez and Bill are going to be vital in this game tomorrow, mixed in with Jeremy McNichols, who also coughed off the football himself, but it hasn't been an ongoing theme with J-Mac. But bringing him into that rotation as that third down guy, just that change of pace, another fresh legs on a defense. You have to imagine our offense likes to go no huddle. So those defenders, a lot of the time, they have their hands on their hips. You see the cold breath. You see the steam coming out of their mouth. They're huffing and puffing. And that's when you bring a fresh legs out that they have to chase again. And this is somebody that's not tired. It's similar to what you would see in any military kind of situation where you have a beat-up unit going against a fresh unit coming in. Typically, fresh unit has the better of them with more bodies and with fresher legs. So the same sort of aspect with this. And so I think with the ground game really working itself, it could be something to divulge into. But I hope that Bill and C-Rod really garner a lot of the touches with C-Mac with that extra sprinkle of electricity to really help this team. Now let's get into the needs versus Philly. I want to ask you guys what your needs would be to go against Philly. And I'll start this off with a question that was submitted by Deluxe. His question is, in the Discord, what is the bigger concern in this game, Barkley or the wide receivers? Which goes into my kind of point. It is shutting down Saquon first and foremost. You have seen, as of late, like Philly has had this kind of thing happen before, where A.J. Brown pops off in the media, unhappy about his targets. They then force feed him targets. Literally, it's nature at this point. And they've actually lost some games with this game plan. So it's funny because I talked to my Eagles coworkers, and I'm like, it's funny how the Eagles offense, they can't have both. It's either A.J. Brown goes off or Saquon goes off. It's like they both can't have a stellar, explosive game together. It's either one or the other. And if you're going to make that distinction, I would go all in halting Saquon Barkley. Do not allow that run game to be easy on you. If A.J. Brown's going to beat you, A.J. Brown's going to beat you. But you cannot just lay down and let Saquon Barkley run for 150 on you. You cannot allow him to do that. That ground game is going to be vital for their offense heading into the playoffs. If you go into this game halting that run game, forcing them to go in that passing game, and they falter and they don't explode, you're creating that doubt in their mind heading into next week and in the playoffs. Can we do this against better teams? Can we be able to throw the ball when we need to against better teams? And that doubt will sow into some beautiful things for Washington. I don't wish bad on anybody, but I'm just saying I don't like Philly. So my needs for this game is stopping Saquon first and foremost. This is going to be the Bobby game in making sure that he gets close up to 20 tackles and ensuring that Saquon is not getting to the third level. I cannot allow that to happen. We saw that in the NFC Championship game. When you allow Saquon to a third level, you cannot depend on your DBs to make solid tackles. I wish you could be able to do that, but we don't have Cam Curl on this team. So I wish I could say that we did. But stopping Saquon is number one. I can live with A.J. Brown with the bombs. Like, I can live with that. I can live with the aggression. I can live with you having an attack style mindset of going after the quarterback and the run game at all times. If they throw it deep on you, that's A.J. Brown being A.J. Brown. But you went out with your hair on fire, and you went out taking a sledgehammer to their face, and that's a Warriors way of doing things. And so that's how I'd go about business. What do you have to lose at this point? What do you have to lose? I understand your game plan has been your game plan for so long, but what do you have to lose at this point? You're already out of the playoffs. Let's just see if it works. Let's just see how this defense looks in an attacking style mindset for 3/4 of the game plan. Just take the governor off the damn engine and let's see how fast this thing can go. At this point, why not? And I think with Mikey and other guys being opportunistic with the ball, Quan should have had a pick last week in the end zone, but he dropped it. Still irks me to right now. But let's see how they do, right? And having Antonio Hamilton out there being a very physical guy, that's my need, is having him on A.J. Brown because he's very physical. So is A.J. Brown. And obviously A.J. Brown has a physical, I I guess, advantage over Antonio Hamilton. But if he plays as physical as he did last Sunday, I think that gives you a fighting chance of being able to nullify that passing game. And so I know you can't forget about Devontae Smith, and I'm sure that Nick Sirianni's going to make sure that Jahan Dotson gets a couple catches early, like he did last time. But ultimately, we want to eliminate A.J. Brown. We want to eliminate Saquon and force you to go to Devontae. And that's where Mikey will make his bread and butter at being able to do that for you. Now, the next question that we have is from Arch. What players need to stand out in this game for Washington to secure the victory? You can't say Mariota. That's a good one. It's a good one. For starters, I'll say it's Brandon Coleman, given that Laramie Tunsil is out of this game. Not only for just protecting Mariota and his blind side, of course, but establishing that run game, being next to Chris Paul. And one avenue of Laramie Tunsil that I wasn't truly aware of until he came to play for us was his run blocking ability. He's been fantastic at doing that. And you want to continue that trend. If you're going to win this football game, you have to be able to ground and pound. You have to come in with the aggressive mindset, be able to move them out of the way. Jalen Carter, fantastic. One of the best defensive tackles in this league that has to offer. Very hard to run on him. Jordan Davis, very good defensive tackle. He's in his contract year looking to make some money. This is the time that if you're ever going to do the ground and pound on the Philadelphia Eagles, it's right now to be able to do so. And trust me, I know that they're a Vic Fangio company. They're very good at what they do. But let's be aggressive. And this is where Brandon Coleman steps into play. At being able to move bodies out of the way, get outside on those pulls, and making sure that you're blocking somebody. Too many standing around sometimes. And so making sure that you're moving those bodies. I think Brandon Coleman, by far, is the one that needs to have a really good game. The other one I'll say is Quan. And it's easy to say for Quan because you see Quan in a lot of plays whenever Washington is out there. But in this game in particular, if you are going to go with an aggressive mindset, if you are going to go into this saying we're going to nullify the run, we're going to dedicate Will Harris up there to make sure that Saquon cannot get to that third level, then you're going to say, okay, well, their next avenue is going to be the short game for passing, and it's going to be deep off play action and everything. Well, Quan is going to have to do what he did kind of last week and ensuring that he's staying over the top. Having that extra body down there is so pivotal and important. It pays huge dividends. And Quan Martin has to be good at keeping the cap over the dam, making sure that he is solidifying that no water gets through. No leaks whatsoever. That is your number one job. And off of that, coming up making tackles. It's been fairly evident this year that Quan hasn't been the best at tackling. Too many times of just throwing his shoulder and not wrapping and tackling. This is a game where it's going to be highly highlighted, without better words. So this is a very important game for Quan Martin to be able to come in and really showcase himself going into next season. We want nothing better than to be able to take out the Eagles, man. I know I'm not alone in saying that. I just really want to be able to do that. I can't stand some of the stuff that they say. Now, let's go to our next question that was submitted by the Colonel. He says, I'm sorry, but I can't let my desire for a top 5 draft pick overcome my hatred for everything about Philadelphia. Philadelphia fans and that side of Pennsylvania. That said, what's it going to take for us to upset the faltering Eagles at home? You know, I kind of highlighted that with Arches, and it's my fault for not reading ahead of time. But it absolutely is taking care of the football. I kind of highlighted that with what I was talking about with Bill and being better at being able to hold on to it and securing it. But it's establishing the time of possession. I know last week against the Giants, we had just barely won the time of possession. The Giants had beat us by 3 first downs overall in that game. A very weird, chaotic game. But you're going to need to tip those scales in terms of time of possession. You don't want to pigeonhole yourself in a situation against Philly in that secondary where you're at 3rd and longs, right? So that's where that first down, second down run comes into play, where you have to ensure that it's a 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, manageable 3rd down situation so you're not pigeonholed. And I would love to see Cliff. I know I hate the word usage that everyone uses for this, but Cliff is in his bag. I understand. But Cliff needs to go into his bag and pick his meat up and put it on the table and basically say it's 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. We're running a shotgun draw, right? Or we're running a run play off of this. because too many times we're put in those situations where it's too easy to figure out what we're doing. And let's just go out of the box. What is there to lose at this point? And let's take them by surprise. And that's where that running game comes into play. And so I would keeping those third downs short is vital for Washington overall in this game, and maintaining time of possession and making sure that they can pick up first downs to move the chains and to bleed the clock. The more so you put Philly in a position where they have to throw the football, the more ability Von Miller has of being able to pin his ears back and get after Jalen Hurts. It gives more of an ability for Javon Kinlaw and Deron Payne to work their magic on stunts in the middle to be able to move things around. But that brings up another thing. You saw Jackson Dart take advantage at times of Washington's gap integrity. And it's so hard for defensive linemen to keep the gap integrity, Colonel. I totally understand that. It's very difficult. Especially when you run stunts, offensive linemen are pushing you in one way. It opens up a crease. But this is where it's one of those that Jalen Hurts will be looking to get those yardage. And obviously, he's an undercover athlete. He's somebody who could pick up a lot of yards in a short way. So for defensively, the defensive line has to do a good job of maintaining those bubbles in the gaps and making sure, because the one thing you want to do is if you are penetrating up the middle in a middle penetration on a pass rush play, last thing you want to do is get pigeon holed this way. You don't want to get shoved to the side so the quarterback can run through you here, right? You want to stay center, pushing that, so that way you have either arm to be able to come over and grab that runner, right? That's what you really, truly want to do. And a lot of times we're running these stunt plays where guys' bodies just out of whack, out of position just a little bit for the quarterback to sneak through. And this is that kind of game where you want to eliminate that from Jalen Hurts. If you could get his eyes down to where he wants to run and you eliminate that possibility, now they're in a very bad situation. Now Jalen Hurts has to backpedal out of it and try to make something happen and let the dogs go eat. And that's where this defensive line has to do a really good job of maintaining their gap integrity for this game, and that's how Washington wins. Is not turning over the football, eating time of possession, getting first downs, and having good gap integrity on the defensive line, in my personal opinion. And next question from the Colonel. For a lot of reasons, I'm disappointed we're not going to see JD5 again this season. I'm with you. He says, but I get it. Why allow teams to get more film on him, especially his weaknesses? He's our franchise cornerstone, and look at what we did with RG3. Those who do not heed, this is a quote, those who do not heed the lessons of history are doomed to repeat them. That last quote kills me because you're right. You do have to learn from history. Absolutely. But at what point are you not learning the lessons, or are you nearly scared of them? Right? Like, I don't want to be put into a position where I'm going to be it's going to be easily predicted what I'm going to do because of past situations. Does that make sense? Like, I don't want to be put in that kind of situation. But I understand why you brought that quote up, because it's like what we did with RG and throwing him out there. And we do have to highlight there are very two separate, distinctive situations that went on with RG. He obviously, his ACL was a legitimate concern when he came back in. Like, everyone knows that now. I know RG can blame the coaching staff all he wants. I truly don't think that he wanted Kirk Cousins to keep going out there and winning games. I think that was a legitimate thing, and I don't want to put anything past him, but I'm just saying I think that is honestly something that went into it. I think all parties are guilty of that. That's not the sort of thing you're dealing with Jaden Daniels. It's that dislocated elbow, and it's his non-throwing elbow. It's much more so of staying safe, and I understand from an offensive coordinator's perspective in saying, well, if we have to play it safe, I can't do our entire game plan. So if I can't do my entire normal game plan, if it's going to have to be safetied, you're putting us at a disadvantage. I totally get that. But how much of a disadvantage is it for Jaden to not be there? Contrary to him, possibly banging himself up. I get it. I totally do. Just like you do, Colonel. I am disappointed I'm not going to be able to see Jaden Daniels again. The kid has been electrifying, and I don't care. Any chance we get, he should be our quarterback on the field. And I really do not care, because this is a grown man's game. And, we always say to my son, because, we like to wrestle, we like to have fun, and and rough play. And my wife says to him, if you want to play rough, you got to be tough. And I like to correlate it to this situation here. If you want to be a rough team, you have to play tough. You have to go with the mindset that this is what it's going to be. We're not going to go in this in a baby step kind of way and trying to organize things and make sure everything is okay. Like, that's not how we should be orchestrating ourselves as Washington. And I respect anybody that wants them to sat, of course, but I don't want to have the wrong foot being stepped in front of.
I gotta get my audio correct.
No, you're good. And now we are joined by special guest of
Get
this
my
show,
audio correct. You joining, Ava?
good friend of this show, Mr. Anthony Armstrong, the deep threat himself. What's up, buddy? How you
What's
doing?
up? What is up? What is up? What is up? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, you as well. I
Now
feel
we
like
got
I'm a
another
little.
special guest with him as well, of course.
Yeah, I got my daughter with me. She's joining in. You
He's
say hi. Can
captivating.
you
Look at that
wave?
smile. Hi.
Yeah, there
My
you
daughter's
go.
asleep right now. Otherwise, I'd bring her in here and let him chat it up.
Ah, nice.
But I wanted to get your opinion, Anthony, because
Yes,
I'm
sir.
not in the position of speaking as a former NFL player. You've been there in a professional aspect. You've been there for some bad times and some good times. With Washington of losing 7 straight, what comes to mind for you in terms of what you're kind of dealing with as a player at that time?
Man, losing sucks. All right, losing sucks first and foremost. Nobody in the locker room is thinking about draft picks. Hey man, how do we get into the top five, top three? Oh, that Fernando Mendoza guy, or he looks pretty good. Like nobody's worried about that. Not in that building, right? Because
Right.
frankly, if they drafted somebody, they might be replacing you. They might be replacing you. But what you are worrying about, Kyle, is that you want to make sure you put some good S on tape, right? Put some
Mm-hmm.
good stuff on tape because once again, there are decisions to be made for this organization, right? There's going to be, cornerbacks that aren't going to be here. There's some cornerbacks that are trying to earn themselves some offseason roster positions. There's same goes with tackle. I mean, you name it. Everybody has to put out a performance, and it comes down to pride over picks. If you're in the locker room, you're playing for pride. You got to make sure that you are putting good stuff on tape because if it isn't in Washington, then it could be somewhere else. And if you approach these last 3 games now with just kind of like, all right, man, let me just coast, let me just get home. I don't want to do anything too crazy. You might find your way on the outside of the NFL, right? You got to approach this thing with the utmost intensity.
Yeah, and I made this argument earlier because, in like my line of work, right, or any line of work, I was saying that like you have no idea what lesson you're gonna possibly learn on any given day, right? And every day that you're not in there, you could be possibly losing a lesson learned that could be helpful later on. Is that somewhat equatable to an NFL player missing games for this stretch?
I mean, I could say there's always quality in getting those game reps, right?
Right.
And then this is one thing I was harping on really a couple other shows I've been doing is just looking at the reps that some of our younger receivers and younger players were getting this year. They weren't going to get those reps. Luke McCaffrey was going to be the fifth receiver,
Right.
right? Maybe fourth at the best. He wasn't going to get all these reps. Same with Jalen Lane. Even the young linebackers on defense. It's one of those things that they needed those key reps. It's going to help them improve and grow, right? It's tough to go into a season and say, all right, man, this is our starter. Also, we've never seen him play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So these are key reps right here. Like I feel like I kind of lost track of what you were saying because the daughter is so dang distracting, man. But ultimately, like no, you are right though. Being able to look back and say, hey, you've been in there, you've been in the game. I've gone against NFL competition. I've gone against NFL corners. Then that's something you can lean on, right? You can go back and look at the tape. It's all about feedback, right? We all want feedback. If we're trying to improve, you got to know what you did good, know what you didn't do well, and find out how to fix it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I do appreciate you for taking some time for me, being able to uh, lasso that buck over there. But the other question I have for you, Drake Jackson is coming back in this game. This is the first time we're going to be able to see him. Do you have any expectations for Drake Jackson? If not expectations, what are you hopeful for?
I'm everybody that touches the field, especially if I'm not familiar with your game, I'm looking for effort, relentless effort. Like you, it's one of those things where you can turn on the tape, Kyle, and you can tell when somebody's actually playing with some heart, somebody actually is, playing with some effort. I can deal with misplays and misassignments. I can deal with some of that, especially when you start getting this far down into the depth chart. And those guys are going to make some mistakes here or there. But what they can't discount effort. They can't discount, you know, flying around on the field. Now, the thing that I hope that you know, from Drake Jackson and frankly from all the other guys that are playing that you don't know their names about, make a play. Just make a splash play. It doesn't mean that you got to score a touchdown. Doesn't mean that you got to go and get 3 sacks in a game, but make a play, right? You're putting stuff on tape that you're going to say, okay, I can work with that guy. I can work with him. If I get some more reps for him, then he's going to do this more often for us. So finding a way to make a play is the ultimate goal. She done unplugged my headphone, man. But finding a way to make a play is going to be big for everybody, simply because hey, your opportunities are slim, few and far between. So you got to make the best. You make the most of it.
Oh, and you're absolutely right. I mean, Ben Sinnott comes to mind when you bring that up, Anthony. And I know that a lot of people had problems with how much reps Ben Sinnott was getting in that game and how many targets he was getting. I would venture to argue that he was used a lot in the blocking game, even though it doesn't get shadowed enough. But that's one player that I would say you probably need to see more of because you want to be able to see what you have in the tight end room. If you have that mindset that Ben Sinnott needs more targets, he needs more playing time with Zach Ertz being out, then why wouldn't you put that attribute that to Jaden Daniels? And I understand what Jaden has done has been monumental and crazy and awesome, but we talked about already, the reps are absolutely valuable. So with that being said, Anthony, now that your headphones are back in, what are you expecting from Ben Sinnott in this game and going forward?
Great question, especially when you preface it towards Jaden. I think that starting with Jaden, just the difference with that is just, I think the way the season is going, and I hate that you have to lean on superstition,
Yeah,
but damn it, man, it seems like every time somebody touches the field, somebody else gets hurt, right? So, like, if they called me and they were like, "Hey, Ant, can you suit up tomorrow?" I would say yes, but then I also know I would probably end up having some sort of a pulled hamstring, and then be on the IR. But with Jaden, like, there's nothing else that you're gonna get because you're missing a lot of um she just yelled. You're missing if you don't have everybody there, Kyle, then it ends up being uh a headache, if you will. So right.
right.
So with offense, it is like on the offensive side with Jaden, like if you don't have your tackle, you don't have everybody in there, they're not operating one unit, then it can be faulty. It's like a clunky engine. Ben hadn't been getting reps all year. You know what I mean? He hadn't been getting any action anyways. So now, yeah, you got to get on the field, but you still got to get past Bates, But for him, it's just to build on last week. He had one catch for 36. Hey, let's see if he can get 2 catches. He doesn't determine where the ball goes, but he has to go out there and just do his job. And we're definitely looking for him to make a jump. But you could definitely tell there was he doesn't have the blocking skills, even though his blocking has improved. He's not John Bates,
Correct.
and neither of them are Zach Ertz. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's tough to say why hadn't Benson on the field. He's not better than Zach Ertz, and Zach Ertz is going to be somebody that somebody's going to argue for him to be in the Hall of Fame. Will he make it? I don't know. I don't get the vote, but somebody will say he's played a hell of a career, and he's not somebody that you just sit down unless the person that is filling in for them is like stellar,
Yeah, and
like
I
Brock
was talking
Bowers.
about this. I was talking about this with Hall because he had made a comment that our tight end room is shaky, and that's something that we need to add more assets into. And my point was, well, the reason why we think it's shaky is because Zach Ertz is playing a lot of reps. We haven't been able to see a lot of Ben Sinnott and Colson Yankoff to be able to say it's not a shaky room. So right now is a perfect opportunity for Ben Sinnott to kind of showcase himself a little bit. This is the time to do it. This is the platform. Unfortunately, it came at the expense of Zach Ertz. His knee, I pray for him with the pain that he's going through. But at
Mhm.
least there is some good in it for Ben Sinnott to be able to showcase what he can do instead of just being written off after his second year when he hasn't had that many opportunities.
Facts. And then other thing is they do run some three tight end sets, but they don't run a whole bunch.
Yeah.
It seems like when Jaden's in there, they try to spread it open a little bit more. And But then you see that there's a lot of really good tight ends in the league, and that seems to be a very popular uh, formation or personnel grouping to have 12 or 13 personnel and let those tight ends match up against smaller safeties and DBs who are playing linebacker now. So the league is kind of shifting around, and I had some tight ends on my list. That cat out of Cleveland, Fannin, I had him on my list as somebody to bring into the fold. The cat
Syracuse, right? Or is that
Lovelace or
cat?
Loveland out of Michigan,
Yeah.
Harold Fannin, I think it is, and then Lovelace or Loveland that's over there from Michigan, that's in Chicago now. Even the young fella Taylor out of LSU was somebody that looked to be intriguing. There's some more
Yep.
tight ends in this upcoming draft. So is the room would probably be thick. It's like it's Zach Ertz and it's a long drop off before you sit there and say you have another passing weapon.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have to give credit to your microphone because I didn't know that your daughter had yelled until you said something. It didn't pick it up at all. So that's a really good microphone.
Oh, good.
Yeah, right.
Awesome. She must have been on. Okay. It's got like five dials on the back, and then the one I have it on is only
There you
getting
go.
like directly in front of me, not on the side. So that's big.
That's huge. You know,
Shout out to
it
this one.
works. Technology works sometimes.
Yeah.
Let's go back in our time capsule a little bit. All right, we planted a time capsule over the summer, and I had asked the round table. I think it was me, you, and Hall at this point, and I had asked who's one player Washington could not mortgage on losing this season for an extended period amount of time. My answer was Laramie Tunsil. I forget what Hall's was. I think it was Bobby Wagner. But
Hmm.
yours, do you remember what yours was?
I have no clue.
It's Terry McLaurin.
I had a feeling when you were
Yeah.
saying it, I feel like Terry would have been the guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he came in last week and I loved his breakdown of that touchdown pass. Saying they had practiced it all week and that going in against that defensive formation. And but with Terry coming back this year, are you surprised at all with how he has looked since coming back? I mean, obviously it takes time for you to get back into the rhythm, into football shape, so to speak. But that first game back, dude, he was very quick, very fast, and he just got right back to it. Was that surprising at all for you?
No, no. He's a guy that you know is doing the work, and
Mm.
just with that type of injury that he had, the soft tissue thing, I hate to say it, I was going right along with him. Like I had pulled my quad probably like 2 weeks before him, and no, I'm not running routes and doing all the other stuff, but like I went to pick up my kids and strained it, right? And so I'm like, when Terry is out there and he goes back out because he had strained his quad, I'm like, I totally get it. Like it's something that takes a little bit more time to get healthy, and he's chomping at the bit to get out there. And I'm glad I had said Terry was the one that was missing because you can see how different the offense is
Yep.
when he's in it and when he's not in it. It's a completely different thing. When Terry McLaurin's on the field, teams are like, look, hey, 17's over there, put a safety over the top, and then that opens up everybody else, right? Zach Ertz looks good. Debo looks great. The running game seems to open
Yep.
up all of a sudden when you don't have a safety in the box, right? You see how that thing works out? So
It's
17 is
crazy, Anthony. It's like I've
somebody.
been saying that all summer and season long, but you know what?
Hey, hey, you know what? We don't know nothing, man. I don't know. We just talk it, but
We're just talking.
it's like that, right? So like whenever in the middle of the season they were like, man, they're just playing press on our receivers. It's like, yeah, because they don't respect nobody. They don't got nobody to respect, and the offense wasn't dialing anything up to make them respect you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like if you don't have Terry, I'm gonna have to throw a deep ball to Luke. I'm gonna throw a deep ball to Traylon. I'm gonna have to throw a deep ball to Jalen. Let y'all know we're still gonna go up top.
Right.
You can't all of a sudden be like, well, we're too afraid to throw it because we don't have 17. So now that Terry's on the field, at least you can see, the offense should look legitimate.
My man. How much more time you got, Anthony?
And getting about five, man,
Give
five
you
to
about
seven.
5 minutes. All right, you
Yeah,
got time to answer one question, a fan question that was submitted
do
for
it,
me.
do it
So I already answered this, but this is from my father-in-law. I call him the Colonel. His
already.
his question is, for a lot of reasons, I'm disappointed we're not going to see Jaden Daniels again this season. But I get it. Why allow teams to get more film on him, especially his weaknesses? He's our franchise cornerstone, and look at what we did with RG3. And his quote was, "Those who do not heed the lessons of history are doomed to repeat them."
That right there is a hell of a quote, and I think it is something to pay attention to, especially because the football guys were kind of knocking on you, saying, "Hey, man, set the boy down." Um,
You're
and
not wrong at all
that's
because,
what they said. Sit
dude,
down.
this whole season has been like literally everybody getting nicked up. To your point,
It's just like hey man, sit down, right? And whereas I've been on the side to keep him on the bench, to keep him on the sideline. This was like 2, 3 weeks ago. And then they were like, well, he might play. And I'm like, all right, well, if you're going to do it, it has to be like you run that sucker 40 times. He throws it 15 times. The
Thank you.
defense better play lights out. Like you have to protect him. You have to protect him with the play calling. You have to protect him with all these other things. And going back to the feedback that we talked about earlier, the thing about the league is that you they're still going to test you on your bad stuff, right? Like if you're not good at A, they're going to put you in a situation to do that every single time
Hmm.
until you fix it. And a lot of the things that I've seen from him is just like it's going to take some more like off-season work and some film work, right? He has to see the offense differently. He has to, you know, I've been asking to find me 3 or 4 more incompletions and rather than making them running plays, right? You
You're a
don't need to
smart man,
run,
Anthony. You're a smart man.
dog. I know a little bit, right? But like you don't have to run on 2nd and 8 in the first quarter and
No.
try to get, like man, throw that sucker to the side. Let's
Right.
let's go run a solid third down play. I don't need you to get me 2 yards. You know what I'm saying? Like
And
I
it
don't need that
possibly
extra.
injure yourself. Right.
Yeah, I don't need the extra contact. I don't need that right there. So for me, and I think I heard that David Blouse has, they've had conversations about like, hey man, you got to protect yourself. But like, I don't want him to have to go and try to practice that against Philly.
Right.
Philly don't give a damn. Dallas ain't gonna give a damn. Philly up in Philly really ain't gonna give a damn, right? They really want to get a hold of him. So knowing that I got some hungry ass dogs on the other side that are ready to get after my wee baby that's freshly born, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I gotta protect. I gotta keep him off the field. I can't do it, and it makes sense because frankly, y'all would be rioting if something happened to that dude.
You're
And
right.
Jay, if DQ said put him back out there, we'll be fine. He needs to get the reps, and then something happened, y'all was ready to tear him up when he dislocated the elbow. Y'all was ready to go after DQ. Why was he in the game? Because you play, but like the way the season's going, hey, let's just lean on playground superstition.
Yeah, like that's where I'm at. Where I understand it. I totally do. I'm not gonna say 100% agree with it because I'd rather Jaden be out there, but I understand it given with how the season has gone.
Yeah, selfishly, I want to see him play. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna be at the game tomorrow. I'm gonna be at the game on Christmas.
Oh,
Selfishly, I
good.
want to see him dissect those defenses and go get a W. But I also know I don't need him to go out there and get hurt.
Yeah.
But you don't think this every like we didn't think this last season at all, did we?
Right.
We were like, man, Jaden's on the field, we finna go win. This season it's like, ooh Lord, anybody touch the field? Oh God, let's just get 60 minutes over with and get off healthy. Right? I think that's the biggest key right now. Number one, good effort on tape. I want to see people flying around. Hey, win a ball game or two, sure. But I'm not really chasing the wins right now. Let's be real. I want everybody healthy. I want to finish these last 3 games with the injury report where it is or smaller. Don't add any new names. I don't need any no new people added in on that mix. Right? We got to get out of this sucker healthy, and you're still building momentum for next year, regardless of what people say. And this is the last I'll say on this. As fans and from the outside looking in, we look at the season as a microcosm. We're just looking at 18 weeks, 17 games. All right. Either you win a Super Bowl or you don't in this. Now, mind you, the Dan Quinn era and everything that we've been dealing with this organization it's a marathon,
Right.
right? DQ got here last year. He just happened to get to the top. We were right there. So now we're comparing everything to that. But we've had some injuries, which has thrown some things off, but we're still on the front end of what this DQ, and Jaden Daniels'
Right.
career could be. We're in year 2 of what we expect this guy to play here for 10, 12, 15 years. This ain't but two. This is one season, just one microcosm of it all. Take care of him here. Now you get 3, 4, 5. He resigns, or he probably resigns after 3 or 4. Then you're thinking, man, 2030, we're trying to raise the trophy as the first home team in the Super Bowl. So I'm saying, like, that's where my mindset is at.
My
I
man.
get this season is a wash, but look, now we can gear up for next season.
My man, the words of wisdom from Anthony Armstrong, as always, as depicted from his prediction with Terry McLaurin. And you were absolutely right about that. I couldn't tell you how many tweets I saw people complaining about the lack of wide receivers. And it's like, well, you had one that you were crapping on all offseason saying it wasn't worth the money, and now you're saying we need wide receivers. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But Anthony, before I get out of here, I'd like to plug your social media handle and your show, sir. And I'll make sure to hit up London and Logan, try to get you on the broadcast for tomorrow and on Christmas, especially with
Okay.
on TV. You should
Yeah.
you should be on TV, Anthony.
Well, I appreciate that. We had a producer, the director of Hard Knocks on Believe in Commanders. Y'all check that out. We put a new one
Oh,
out today with
nice.
Jeff Kerr. And so I did make a little pitch. I was like, hey, man, if you need somebody at this game or Christmas to be on the camera, because like, you can't fire me. Every time you're on Hard Knocks as a player, you're probably getting cut or you're the superstar. I wasn't the superstar. So therefore, I knew I was going to get cut. But now I'm on the outside looking in. You need a mic? I got you. I'll do that.
My man,
But
now I
y'all,
can see why you got into sales. You're perfect for it, Anthony. Absolutely perfect.
man,
All right, brother.
you know what? I wouldn't even call it sales, man. I'm just helping people. But no, y'all
Oh,
check out
that's
Believe in
fair. That's
Commanders,
fair.
man. Check out Believe in Commanders. Check out the player squad that's on Locked On, and the Commander squad on Locked On. You boys doing 3 podcasts now. This thing has kind of exploded. Kyle, it's been a lot of fun to talk ball with all type of folks, and I'm just enjoying the ride, man.
God bless your wife, man. I know that it's got to be hard on her as well and the family, but
Shit, she busier than me. She busier than me. She busier than me. So we're both busy individuals, but God bless my wife,
I
nonetheless.
like how you check behind you when you.
Yeah, you see, I had to make sure I ain't had nobody watching. I was gonna get knocked in the bum. You see Armstrong get knocked out live
Right.
on the pod. That'd go viral.
That
Honestly,
would
man.
be a great clip to have. All right, Anthony. Have a good night, brother. I appreciate you as
Hey
always,
man,
man.
yes sir. Y'all be good.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Anthony Armstrong. Always appreciate Anthony's time being able to come on here and join us and to give his thoughts on everything Commanders. We only have a couple more questions submitted in. We did have a comment on Twitter. I'm not going to call it X. I'm just going to say Twitter. This is from DMV Sports Fan. He said it would have been nice if the organization invested in Jaden Daniels. His receivers called smart plays and developed young talent on both sides of the ball. Had they done that, I doubt the team would be in the position with no foreseeable way out. I will say you're probably being a little bit you're being a little bit too hard on them. They are in their second year. They only had so much money to divulge. And with the moving, like, I would argue that to be able to invest and to invest in Jaden Daniels, being able to invest in a left tackle like Laramie Tunsil is one hell of an investment on top of that. You're protecting the blind side of Jaden Daniels. And that was MO number one. We went into the offseason last year saying the offensive line needed some help. They went out and got that help to make sure that their quarterback was going to be okay. They went out and they traded for Deebo Samuel, somebody who can help a quarterback, be kind of like an extra layered tight end over the middle, helping with the roundabouts, just adding another weapon there. So as much as I'm saying you're overly critiquing them, I understand, but you also have to take into consideration this is only their second year. They're trying to add in weapons. They brought in Jalen Lane. Of course, that was only for special teams primarily, but it's also another weapon to be able to divulge into, if not this year, later down the road as he develops into that kind of deep threat, middle of the field kind of guy. Obviously, he's got to work on his hands, but it's not like they haven't gone into to try to help Jaden Daniels. And I would say that on both sides of the ball, I understand that argument. You probably have a point with that. But at this point, they're in their second year. We're probably being just overly. I understand this season has gone awry. You need things to blame. You want to take your frustration out on something. You're trying to find something to pinpoint to say this is what it is. I get it. Only point being is this is their second year. Let's take a breather. Everything's going to be okay, and trust the process of building a perennial winner. I myself said 20 years of being in the basement to now being in 20 years of dominance. Obviously, I look like an idiot saying that given the way this season has gone. But I'm just saying that is still the hope going forward. And so you have to put the caveat in there that last season was magical. It was fantastic. It was awesome to experience. And as much as we want that every single year, the NFL is hard to win in. And when you have a lot of issues going on, it's hard to be able to bring that in. I would go into a Civil War aspect of this, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to bore you guys to death. Now, the next question we had submitted in the Discord was from Tim Towner. Real quick, just yes or no, do we need to update the helmet? What do you mean by update? I like the helmet for what it is, right? Like, it's simply just a helmet, right? Like, I love that they added the stripes with the throwback Super Bowl era uni jerseys. I would say that if that's the update you're speaking of, then yeah, that needs to be full time. The helmet, you just feel Washington again with that whole mindset. It's familiar. You love the look of it. That needs to stay, of course. Um, but otherwise, like any drastic changes to it, I don't think so. I think that we've done enough drastic changes to the helmet at this point that you're not going to appease everybody, of course. But I think that the helmet that they have now, everything fits, it works, it does a phenomenal job. The one that needs updating is the black helmet, to be perfectly honest with you. I said it from the get go. There's not enough burgundy in it. And you can do a lot of good things with burgundy with black. I would hint to what Florida State did with their uniforms. Is people call it what, like crimson red? I don't know exactly what the color of FSU is. I know it's different, but it's very similar in the sense of how they use their black unis with their red. That you can do something similar with Washington. It just seemed very it just seemed very rushed with the black uni. I love the camo aspect of it. I want to keep the black jersey. Of course, if you want to bring back the Super Bowl retros all full time, things are going to have to get eliminated. I get that. But damn, do I love those black jerseys, man. They're phenomenal. But I do think that black helmet needs to be adjusted. The next question from Tim Towner. If you are a team like Pittsburgh, fairly decent, but need a quarterback, would you make a Trey Lance level trade, 3 first-round picks plus, but not for an unproven rookie, rather for a Joe Burrow or any above-average quarterback playing for a team that is cash-strapped and has no draft picks? Several teams are going to be eating a lot of dead cap. Would you trade when you first see the writing on the wall? It's a really good question because we have to look at the grand scheme of Pittsburgh, right? I know you're saying a team like Pittsburgh, but a team like Pittsburgh has built up their defense again. That's back to their identity, right? And that's where Pittsburgh really makes their money at. And they went down the path of going with the Justin Fields. They went down the path of the Russell Wilson, right? They went down the path of Aaron Rodgers, and it really hasn't blossomed for them. I think if you're Pittsburgh, you go back to what your history was, if you're Pittsburgh, and that is banking in on the rookie quarterback and letting him grow with the offense, letting your defense carry you, and growing your quarterback in with your offense, having the run first approach, and then going about business in that sort of direction. That's your best avenue for success. And too many times you put everything on the quarterback in a short amount of time and expect him to do big things, and it falls flat on its face. And then the question doesn't become in a change in operation that way. It becomes into, well, we'll get a quarterback that can do that. And then you're just on this ongoing theme of just trying to bring in somebody that is really, really hard to do. And you got to, honestly, you got to get lucky at doing that. But the best case to go forward, if you're doing anything, is getting that rookie quarterback, letting him grow, building around him, of course, and having a run game to be able to sustain him with a very good defense. And that's what Pittsburgh has, and that's what Pittsburgh should be doing. I think if you asked Adam Peters, he would look at that Trey Lance trade and say, we made the wrong decision. We could have waited until the 7th round to get our quarterback. And that's my whole point here, is you don't need to make those kind of crazy things. But if you are going to do anything, I wouldn't even need to go down the route of getting a sustainable starting superstar quarterback right now. I'd go and grab Malik Willis, being perfectly honest with you. I'd try to pry him away from Green Bay. And I would put a first rounder on there possibly next year. But just one, and being able to get their backup quarterback, I think they'd be okay with letting that walk. And that's something that you can really build with a team like Pittsburgh, is somebody that can work with their legs, has shown to be able to work well in this league. And that's the kind of route that I would rather go down. I'm much more so on the Peters mindset of thinking of the kind of bargain bin going to shop at Goodwill for your clothes type of mindset. I don't need to go buy the Versace pants, the clothes. I don't need to go buy Ray-Bans. I'll just go to 7-Eleven, pick up my glasses, and that'll do the job that I need it to do. And I think that too much do we divulge it into this quarterback needy thing that we try to force feed a square peg into a round hole and then say, okay, well, let's try to find that round peg. No, that's not the issue. It's not the round peg is the issue. The issue is what you're trying to do. You need to be able to build the team and add the cog into it. to help it work. And we're seeing a lot of this. Like with Tom Brady and the Patriots back in the day, even the late Bucks, you can look at it to say, was it all Tom? Was he the only focal point? Or was it the overall team that was built? The fact that Bill Belichick called the defense, the fact that they had very good defenders and a good defense that was confidence building every single week. It was a marriage between the two. And that's what you have to have. That's why the argument of people constantly saying, well, you need to surround Jaden with more weapons. I understand that. That's great for fantasy football, but that's not great for winning football games. When you're constantly in shootouts, you're going to find yourself in the loss column more times than not. You need to be able to have a sustainable, good defense to supplement with a young quarterback and a solid running game, which we have established this year. So all I'll say is that's what you need to do for a quarterback. You don't need to go all crazy and trade a bunch. That's what gets regimes in really bad situations. Luckily for the 49ers is they drafted Brock Purdy in the 7th round. That saved their ass. Because if they didn't draft Brock Purdy in the 7th round, I would be willing to bet that Adam Peters probably would have stayed in San Francisco and Lynch would have been gone or something of the sort if that didn't work out. Offering that much would have been very, very, very bad. I've always been against trading up a bunch of picks for a quarterback. We saw how that was with RG3. You have to put in – I know we want to look at things in a hopeful mindset, but you also have to look at the negatives coming off of that and the possibilities of that. And you have to build your team based on being able to be sustainable if those bad things were to happen. And is that team, Pittsburgh or others, in that sort of mindset to say, if we did that and it didn't work out, are we still going to be self-sustainable for those years that we don't have those picks? That's the big question, my friend. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap us up for this show. I apologize. I don't know what happened. Hall probably fell asleep. It is what it is. But if you made it this far, you're a frickin' champion. I can't thank you enough. Thank you to Anthony Armstrong. Thank you, Tim Towner. Thank you to the Colonel. Thank you to Arch for tuning in, for adding some tidbits into this episode. Just helping me out a little bit more. I'm sure it's got to be so frustrating to listen to me talk for an entire hour. So if you have, hat tip to you. You deserve a beer, sweet tea, something good. Chick-fil-A spicy sandwich, something delicious to be able to help you get by. But we'll see you guys again on Monday to recap the game. Maybe Sunday. I don't 100% know. I don't know how the schedule is going to work out. I'll talk to the boys, and I'll let you guys know. But I can't thank you guys enough for doing this. I know last episode it was very long. It was my first time with this new streaming software, and so I was working out the kinks. That was the first time using it this time around. I hope that it's not the same issue. I could guarantee it's not going to be the same issue. Learning as we go. And just mistakes happen sometimes. So I apologize for last episode, boys. But I can't thank you guys enough. Love you guys. God bless you. Make sure you go to church this weekend. Good luck to the boys tomorrow. Going against our foes, the Golden Bridge. All right, everybody. We'll see you then. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support.